This is a video of a presentation I did to a group of people with multiple sclerosis in Victoria, British Columbia, where I discuss evidence-based research on how connectedness through writing, learning, and experiencing nature can improve health outcomes in anyone with a chronic illness, but especially multiple sclerosis. The images are from my garden, Victoria, and one from Seattle. Enjoy.
So my name's Sandra, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about connectedness. And you know, having a disease like MS, we often feel, or at least I feel, that, you know, so much is being dictated by our body and our whatever, or how we slept the night before. You wake up and you're like, I have no energy. You're getting dressed takes too much energy. Gosh, I remember trying on clothes in a store. I'd be exhausted after, oh, this size doesn't fit. I don't have the energy to go get the other size and try on another outfit. So much is dictated outside our bodies, or, our body is telling us what we can and cannot do. And so what I decided to do is I looked at some research that, instead of, buying into we'll just find out what works for you. I mean, have you ever heard that? People say to each other, well, you need to find what works for you. Well, how the hell are you supposed to do that? Yeah, where do you start? Do you start by taking this vitamin? Do you start by going on this diet? Do you start by doing this exercise every day? It's a blank slate, and you hear, and everyone has a story to say, well, this worked for me, why don't you try it? Well, it costs money. It costs time, it costs energy. You don't know how to track your outcomes. You don't know whether it's working necessarily. Sometimes staying the same with multiple sclerosis is working. Sometimes getting worse slowly is working. But you wouldn't know that because you're not able to track yourself. You're not a lab rat. You're not able to do that reliably. So the one thing I thought I could do is I could read the research. I'm a researcher myself, and I know how to read research. I know how to interpret research. And I thought, well, maybe the research can give us a little tiny hint, and each of us can take from those hints some guidance of, hey, I'm going to try that. And you know now that there is research behind this, I'm going to try this, that says this worked. This is research that tracked people with MS, often women with MS, because just look at the group, women, and it found that these strategies work. They work to relieve anxiety, reduce depression, reduce stress, improve mood. All of these things will be addressed by the research that I'm going to talk to you today about. And so maybe from today, my wish is that you'll think of something and you'll go, I'm going to try that, and know that it has the weight of research behind it, that it will work. And I think that's great, rather than going down a road that you don't know that it's going to have any benefit at the end of it. And so the thread that runs through all this research is connectedness. And so the first type of connectedness that I'm going to talk about is writing. And it's not necessarily the creative, expressive type of writing that you might think of when I say writing. It could be journal writing. And again, journal writing, gosh, what came to mind when I first started a journal was, I'm going to track how I feel today. I'm going to track, when did I have a last bowel movement? How long did I sleep last night? It was like health outcomes. And that was my life, right? So what am I writing about? I'm writing about those sorts of things. Oh, I got 5.5 hours sleep, or, I went to the bathroom at 6 o'clock, and, Apple Watches, things like that. I know from my energy and my mood how I slept last night, right? And I know, don't beat myself up about it. You just get up and you get on with your day. But the Apple Watch or a similar device may be good for you. If you're ambulatory, maybe a simple pedometer to track steps. So I'm not saying that tracking devices aren't good. I'm saying they didn't work for me. They didn't speak to me, but they might to you. And so any type of journal that you can embark on, so it can be a health outcome type of journal, or it could be more of an emotional journal, like talking about things that affected you in a more of an emotional, experiential way, you know, in terms of I'm really looking forward to such and such, or I don't know why I'm feeling this way today. Like that type of writing could also be something that you might want to embark on. Don't set yourself up for failure. Don't say it has to be every day. Don't say it has to be 10 minutes a day. Don't say it has to be at a certain time of day, because we all know that MS throws curveballs at us, and you might not be able to do that. Just make sure it's something that you feel comfortable with and you want to try. I used to tell people, write, I can't think of anything to write. That might be what you accomplish on a day that your mind is just exhausted from all the other demands of your life. So journal writing can take many, many forms. And what the research says is that if you embark on a journal, your sense of control over your life, and this study was done with women with MS, middle-aged women with MS, so their sense of control over their own life greatly improved. Now, MS takes control over our life away. You wake up in the morning and all of a sudden something isn't working, right? Or you have to give up your job or whatever. And so there's a lot of things that are out of our control. So when you can grasp back little glimmers of control over your life, that's a good thing. And the research shows that any type of journaling you can embark on will increase your sense of control. And it's called autonomy. You feel more in charge of your life rather than your life is dictating to you. You're in charge a little bit of your destiny. That doesn't mean you are at fault for anything that goes wrong. Please don't ever think that you are sick because you did something wrong. You're not. Don't ever buy into those people that say, oh, it's because you didn't eat better, or you didn't sleep better. That's why you don't feel well. No, it's a disease. But journaling is one type. Now, journaling isn't the only kind of writing. If you go, oh, Sandra, I don't want to do a journal. Well, maybe you want to do creative writing. Maybe you want to do creative expression through writing. And honestly, it could be writing in the sand. It doesn't have to be pages of writing, because I don't know about you, but using a pen, it's a lot better than it was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I couldn't sign my name. I couldn't write at all. But I have learned again how to do that. It's called neuroplasticity. My body has learned how to write again and type again, by the way. If I was to write big, long letters to people, I would feel self-conscious because my writing isn't, I'm a school teacher. It's not the beautiful school teacher writing I had most of my life. I'm not inclined to handwrite, either to myself or to others. So I dictate on my phone a lot. And so if I'm writing something, even something creative, I will dictate it on my phone because my voice is still okay. So there are accessible ways that you can express yourself creatively and write. Now, maybe you're writing for yourself. Maybe you're going to write to somebody that maybe you go, wow, they might want to hear from me. And so you can write. As most of you know, I did my PhD over at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So I went over once a week. I used to drive to campus. I started the degree in 2005, finished in 2014. So once a week I went to campus. I would stay about 3 days and drive home. Well, it took me about 6 hours door to door to get from my house to the apartment I rented at Simon Fraser University. And what did I do for those 6 hours? Well, some of the times I just had book readers, reading the books that I had to read every week as part of my student assignments. But a lot of the time I would set my phone on record, like it's recording right now, and I would write. And I would just dictate into my phone, and I would write letters to friends. I would write Christmas lists. I would write shopping lists. I would get there, and one of my girlfriends, she said, Sandra, ever since you've started this degree, I've heard from you more than I've ever heard from you ever before. It's because I would write while I was driving. I had time, but when you're a full-time student, you don't have time to keep those connections going in your life. But the driving, you're in a car where you're kind of, nothing else I could do. Well, you could pay attention to the road, but I mean the ferry, right? Okay. So I'm on the ferry. So don't tell the RCMP I was doing that. But on the ferry, you can dictate, right? And so expressive writing, whether it's a letter to yourself or it's a letter to others, make a connection with someone, like an old school friend. Find out where they are and just say, hey, it's been 30 years. I'm just wondering how you're doing. These sorts of expressive types of writing, research has shown they are good for our brains. It reignites parts of your brain that maybe are just a little bit inactive right now. And so expressive writing, very, very important. And like I said, it can just be something that you wipe away immediately, like a Zen garden, in sand, drag your finger and write the word, wipe it away, and it's instantly destroyed because the act is in the creation, not the permanence of the item. So the same things, it's the act of doing, not of attaining. And so the other type of research on writing connectedness is about writing about the hard stuff, writing about the fears that you have, the traumas that we've all experienced, whether they are health related or family related, life related, writing about traumatic experiences. Physiologically, your body will do better. You will recover, not that you ever recover from trauma, I don't mean to say that, but you will feel that you are coping better if you write about it. And we've heard people say that, well, you should write your feelings down. Well, I'm telling you, they've done research on it, and with people with MS. So this is all research about MS. And so if you're having fears about, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to live in this house, right? Gosh, I've been there. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do X, right? I don't know if this is the last time I'm going to be able to do X. We've all been there. We've all had that last time that we've done something, and sometimes you're aware it's the last time while you're doing it, and there's a sadness and a grieving that starts. The loss of health is a true grief. It's a loss just like any other loss in our life, and writing about it will help us in a very tangible, real way. So I'm not putting out like, why don't you just try something, then find something that works for you. I know the research says this will work. So if you're having a rough time with a partner, you're having a rough time with something in your life, write it down. And even if you destroy it, even if you write it and say, there, I've put it to paper, I don't want the chance that anybody will ever read this, so I'm going to destroy it. You've written it, and the brain will have processed it, and your anxiety will go down, your feelings of being able to cope will increase. And so those are 3 different types of writing that you can embark on. And the fourth one is something we've all heard about, which is a gratitude journal. Now, you might say, well, if I want to journal, maybe I want to write the crappy stuff as well as writing the good stuff. Maybe I don't want to just focus on the good stuff. It's up to you which way you go. But research has shown writing a gratitude journal actually helps the brain. It's wired for gratitude and kindness. And they're very closely connected. And so when you think of what you're grateful for, it's a very small step to extend that gratitude into an expression of kindness. I'm going to embark on an act of kindness as a result of my feeling of gratitude. So when you write in a gratitude journal, the next step is to act on it, to say, I'm really grateful that my neighbor dropped off those apples from his tree. The next thing is to express kindness. You are grateful, spread it out. Part of these feelings of positivity and kindness and gratitude is cutting out the negative stuff. And by that, I don't mean not acknowledging our bodies. That's not it at all. It's cut out being a consumer of negativity, shut off the news, shut out the gossip. When people are talking in negative ways, go, oh, look, a bird, and go outside. Don't consume, don't spread it around. Try not to contribute to negativity in the world. Like, we have enough going on. I don't mean if you hear about a tragedy in the world, of course, we want to acknowledge that as shared human beings. We have enough on our plate. And honestly, it doesn't affect us. And except that the negativity is going to affect your brain. Focus on something that you can do, and that will increase, like I said, your feelings of control. It will elevate your mood, decrease your anxiety, and I think all of these things are a reason to embark on some kind of writing. So I've given you like 5 different ways that you can do this that are all based in research. So I'm going to be quiet now for about a minute or so. It's hard for me. And I want all of you to just think. And just think, is there something that you could write that might help you in one way or another? Okay, as you come out of that, just know that the research is there to say it will help. Now, the studies were, I think they were 30 days long. They tracked people, and there were tangible improvements in people's physiology 30 days later. Now, it might have happened at 5 days later, but the researchers tracked it at 30, right? So they measured people at the beginning, they measured them again at 30, and there were absolute tangible improvements. And so know that it will work. And maybe, it's not going to get me up and dancing out of my scooter, but it is going to make me feel more capable. It's going to make me feel more elevated in my mood. It's going to reduce my stress, my anxiety. All of those things are very good for somebody battling a chronic health condition. It's something you can reflect back on. When you're having a bad day, you can look at those 5 things and just scroll through them over the past while and go, right, I remember that day. It'll bring it back. Yeah. I remember breathing that air in the forest, or I remember hearing that eagle overhead. And you'll go, wow. And those feelings, the endorphins, will flood your brain. Really, really positive. One little hint that I have, this is from my old English teacher days. I used to teach English. And that is, when you're writing, a way to get that connection to be at a, I'm going to say deeper level, is to say you write and you say, you know, I slept really well last night, okay? I had a really good night's sleep. I'm grateful I had a really good night's sleep. To ask a question of yourself, starting with either why or how. To say to yourself, I had a really good night's sleep. Then write, why did I have a really good night's sleep? Now you're thinking. This is actually what my PhD is in, is it's actually in the metacognition that follows when you get at that level of why did I have a better night's sleep. You've stopped thinking about the night's sleep as just a health outcome, and you're starting to look at the precursors and go, well, I didn't watch TV right up until bed, or what I watched was not exciting. It wasn't like a Tom Cruise movie or something. It was something more relaxing, you know. I watched a jazz concert or, you know, whatever. You know, ask yourself that, why did I get a good night's sleep? And then maybe try to tease that out about, oh, you know, I didn't have that last cup of coffee, or I didn't have my phone beside me looking at Facebook until 11 o'clock at night. You know, it might help you, you know, the how and the why questions. So let's say you're in your kitchen and you go, whoa, boy, you know, was that ever a good dinner? How did I do that? Right, I had the right groceries in. I got help when I needed it. I did, you know, so the how question there teases out, and you're more likely to repeat it then. You're more likely to reflect and learn from that. The second one is about learning connections. Do you know, Dr. Philip James, he said, neurons don't die. Neurons go to sleep in our brain, and we can wake them up. And you know how we wake them up? Is you push those synapses to make new connections. And so how you make new connections is stop doing same old, same old. Don't get off at the same bus stop. Don't brush your teeth with the same hand. How easy is that? Just to use, don't pour your tea with the same hand. Don't cut. I mean, a knife. Okay, knife is dangerous. No, forget that one. But you know what I mean, is vary it up. And okay, so when I say challenge yourself to learn something new, I'm not saying, oh, you need to learn Russian. I'm not talking about anything that is rote learning. And rote learning is like trying to learn a language, or trying to memorize a speech, or trying to read a book on the Amazon, and okay, you know, someone's going to be testing me on this, right? That is rote learning. That does not go well with MS, by the way. The type of learning that increases your brain's neuroplasticity, the type of learning that actually improves our brains, is interconnected type learning. Where, have you heard of a concept map? Concept maps are where you say, want to learn about butterflies. Well, you could get the Wikipedia page and you could read about butterflies, but that's kind of rote. But you could go to the butterfly gardens out by the airport. You could watch a YouTube video on butterfly mating and reproduction. You could draw a picture of a butterfly. This type of concept, and you say butterflies fly, but their flight pattern is not that dissimilar from what flies like a butterfly. Probably nothing. Maybe a hummingbird. Maybe the wing action of a butterfly is like that figure of 8 of a hummingbird. I don't know that, but wouldn't that be interesting to find that out, is how do they both hover? You know? And so when you interconnect learning, our MS brains get on fire, and it actually does incredibly well. We can learn untold things if we make connected learning rather than just trying to, oh, I gotta memorize this, I mean, I'm no good at memorizing things. I was in the car ready to come here at 10 o'clock this morning because my stupid brain said, you got to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, so that linear of getting somewhere at the right place at the right time, my MS brain is no good at that. But I can draw connections. I am really good at integrating knowledge. My brain does that really well, and yours does too. That is how you learn. And so one of my master's degrees colleagues here at UVic, she interviewed people in Victoria who were over the age of 100. Now, these people did not have MS, but she interviewed them, and she said, what would you like to learn? Something that you've never learned before. One man said he wanted to learn to knit. One person said they wanted to learn to play the guitar. One person said they wanted to learn Spanish. So she interviewed about 6 people. She got them the tutors. They learned, and she tested that learning. And they learn just as well as a 30-year-old. Your brain never forgets how to learn. So the idea is learning ignites your brain. And by God, our MS brains never forget how to learn. We might forget how to walk, we might forget how to pee, we might forget how to do all sorts of other things. But our brains never forget how to learn. I mean, just look at the research here. Okay, so rote learning, not so great. This is a quotation from a woman. This is a woman who was learning a new form of art, right? And she said, it gave me, and she's an MS patient, it gave me something big in my life to wonder and think about, which took over the space, not my MS. So basically, it made something bigger in her life. Because, we are focused every single moment of our days, oh gosh, I dropped that. Oh, I dropped so many things. And now with our house for sale, it's so difficult because all I have to do is put this away and the kitchen will be ready. Oh my God, I just dropped. Oh my gosh. Oh, you have no idea. Anyway, learning something new is going to help ignite your brain and just make it an interconnected learning, multimodal. Experience the learning, talk to others about it if they know what you're learning about. Seek out something that you don't know anything about. The UVic has, what do they call them? The visiting lecture series. They're free. You can go up there and they'll have a visiting scholar. It could be a Victorian that's just come back and has achieved some, fame doing some exploration of the Arctic. And they're free. And they actually give refreshments. And you can go up there and you can learn, and you can just be a fly on the wall. And you learn. So don't, if you're watching the same TV program every day, what are you learning? Right? Turn on PBS and go, I am just going to jump to that channel. I don't care what's on. I'm just going to watch something new, right? We tend to gravitate towards things we know. Go a different path, the road not taken, right? One of the things I did through the pandemic, and I don't know why, is I looked up Julia Child, the cook. And there's now a series on Julia Child. I think it's on HBO. I looked at her up, and I looked at her old videos that you can find on YouTube of her program. I now make a kick-ass Julia Child omelet, I never in all of my life knew that that's how you made an omelet. It's the most delicious omelet you've ever had in your life. You know, I knew of her, but I didn't know anything about her other than she cooked a lot with butter, I think. So we're going to do our minute. We're going to think, what ignites you that you want to learn? Okay, so we're coming up on a minute. You can see the interconnectedness with the writing and that learning, because you might want to take a few notes. You might want to draw a concept map. You might want to, like I said, hit at it in more than one way, and you will learn it. And rather than just reading a paragraph that you might forget and go, oh, I have to read that again. Even if you're interested in the subject, just reading a paragraph, and we've all done that. I mean, we've all been students where you read the paragraph over and over and over, trying to memorize. Make it an interconnected. Learning is, we have to be lifelong learners, and don't just make lip service to it, because it helps our MS. So this is what I'm here to say. It actually helps our MS. It's not just makes you a better human and a lifelong learner. It actually helps our MS. And this is what the research has shown, is that there's all sorts of things that our muscles might not respond, but our brain responds to learning. It's eager to be used to learn. I mean, gosh, when you think of it, my legs don't work that well anymore. So how much of my brain that was devoted to running and sprinting and all the things I used to do is now just sitting there going, I wish Sandra would use us. All these neurons that are just up there going, oh, she doesn't use us anymore, so we could do other things. And they can. So, look at the resources that we have even within ourselves to be able to relive, re-experience, to journal about, to connect. There's so much there. We have lots of stuff. And there's bad stuff in there too. And I don't mean to say we've all had rosy, wonderful lives. We all know that everyone experiences difficult things. Expression can be a way to deal with those in a very real way. Okay, the last thing, and that is the last type of connections, which is connection to nature. Now, I happened to be listening to Dr. David Suzuki when he said, look, I'm looking for people to join me in a challenge. He called it the One Nature Challenge. And I mean, I'm sure you've all heard about grounding. You've heard about the vibrational energy of the earth. Every atom of your body used to be something else on this planet, right? And so you could have been, a plant growing in the Himalayas at one point, part of the atoms of your body, or you could have been, a fish swimming the Atlantic. We don't know where all of the different atoms and molecules in our body came from, but we are all connected. There is no doubt about it. And so that interconnectedness with nature is something that, again, MS research has shown that we do far better when we are outdoors and we experience seeing the vibrational energy of the earth. Or you could say it's just the fresh air, it's just the idea that we're not, housebound, I guess, to say that. And we're all here, so that tells us we all got outside to get here. But again, my challenge to look at this research to say, how can you integrate the outdoors more into your life? Can you get off at a different bus stop, which, maybe it's one bus stop further away? I mean, if you've got wheels, that shouldn't necessarily be a problem. Can you take a different path to the store? Can you, my hands, I don't have great feeling in my fingers, but feeling the textures of plants is really important to connect with nature. And so there's so many different ways to experience it. And I'm not trying to add to your list of things to do, because I know just being alive with multiple sclerosis takes up 99% of my day. But there are those moments when you are waiting for something. You're waiting for someone to pick you up. You're waiting for whatever, that you can experience something else that's living. So the research shows that taking care of something is huge for MS. So look around your living environment, and I brought my African violet today. My grandmother grew African violets. I have failed so many times, and you're doing okay, aren't you? Got a little bit of a dead leaf here and a little bit of a yellow one, but they go to my worms. Looking after something else. You don't have to buy a dog. If you can, great. Yeah. If you can raise worms, great. Talk to me. I'll give them to you for free. But you don't have to have a pet to be responsible for the life of something else. You can pick a plant. And this is the connection with my grandmother. But I've got about 8 of them at home. And like I said, I failed many times, but I keep trying. And sometimes I get it right. And it is so important to have something else. We can worry about ourselves every other minute of the day, right? But looking after something else is my mindfulness, is my meditation. I don't have to worry about myself every minute because I'm looking after other things. Thousands of worms, my garden, my African violets are my indoor thing, right? So your sprouts, looking after something else, connecting with something else that's alive. Make a connection with the living planet around us. Find a way to bring something of nature into your life. What David Suzuki did, the 30 times 30 challenge, was 30 minutes a day for 30 days. And it was research. And we participated, we did the testing. And yes, it elevated our moods. It decreased our stress levels just by being 30 minutes a day out in nature. Now, he had us actually touching nature. So sitting out in a patio, even surrounded by nature, for that research didn't count. But all research has parameters, right? And the parameter was you had to be touching. So it was, oh my gosh, when I was doing it, I wasn't walking that well. And I thought, you have to be touching. So I went out on the grass one day, and I thought, I will sit, and I'd done it before. I will sit on this grass, and I will just experience nature for 30 minutes. Well, I don't know whether it was this time of year or later, but it was a hot day, and MS and heat. I couldn't get up. So I'm 30 minutes, and the 30 minutes go, and Landon's not home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got myself into a bind now because I can't move. And I don't know whether I rolled like a whale or something over to the shade, and to finally cool down enough that I could stand up. And it must have been a smoking hot day, and I just overheated. I do that in my greenhouse too. I have a little greenhouse on our property, and I was in there the other day, and I'm like, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden this wall of fatigue hits me, and I look, and it's 42 degrees in there, and I thought, bingo. So nature, yes. Don't be afraid of sunlight. You don't have to be afraid of it, but be careful, because MS it loves sun, loves vitamin D, but always have an out. Always, be able to take breaks in the shade. So sitting and feeling nature, hug a tree. Do you know trees, and this is what is amazing, their roots go down to a time thousands of years ago that earth was exposed to the air. So the tree's roots, like if you go up to a big tree, the roots might go down 20 feet. Well, how long has it been since 20 feet down has been exposed to the air? And so they are ancient. They represent ancient biology coming up from below. And so when you hug the bark of a tree, you're hugging nutrients that have lived maybe, 50,000 years underneath the soil. And so that connection that you make is tangible, and it helps MS. In fact, when you are in touch with nature, it helps your heart health, your vascular health, your immune system, and your mood. All of the elements, like I said, of elevating your mood. And that is what the research says. You'll be stronger, your heart will beat better, and you will feel better. And so can you do 30 minutes a day? Well, you might be really busy and you might not be able to afford 30 minutes a day. Or like Diane said, you might not want to do that prescriptive sort of thing that, I'm going to fail, I got to rush out and do my 30 minutes. You don't want to have that kind of approach to it. Find a way to incorporate it into your life. What activity could you take outside that you currently do inside? Just think about that. Just say, I do a lot of online shopping. Sorry. Do it outside. Okay, so our minute is you're going to think about something that you don't currently either do outside or something that you want to do outside. Just think of something, some way that you could make that connection. Okay, so that's our minute. And another accessible thing that we can all reach is soil. Like, if you've got a container that you can put your hands in, or a raised bed, like I have raised beds. I did an accessible gardening video with the CRD. Suzanne was in it. And I could send the link to the group, Diane, if you haven't seen it. And Suzanne actually talked about another important thing in garden therapy, which is to recruit help. Don't lift a heavy tub and injure yourself going, I got a garden, it's good for my MS. It is wonderful for your MS to garden. But, look at the social benefits of recruiting somebody to help to garden with someone else. It might be another MSer who has the ability to lift that container up onto the shelf for you so that you can reach it. And so you might have the plant knowledge, they have the brawn to be able to lift. You work together, right? It's not that, I'm just going to sit in my wheelchair and watch while you garden. There are things we can do. And so even if, you're fumbling in your fingers or you can't lift anymore, you might have the knowledge. You might have the sheet that says, says here we got to plant it 10 inches deep, right? There's something you can do no matter what your ability. And it's important to feel that connection so you're not an observer to that life, but you're part of it. And so find a way to make it part of you. And so, like we're moving, like I said, We're not ready to give up gardening yet. And I'm not. I mean, you look at me and you go, Sandra, how on earth can you garden? And there are many, many things I cannot do. But I can do enough that my partner can do the rest. It's a way to maintain that connection. And like, we do a lot of container gardening. And so if you have a balcony at home, you can garden. Now, if you are indoors, you can garden. You can even grow edible crops indoors if you want to eat. So there are so many things you can do to connect with the living world, and that makes you feel part of, to me, it makes me feel part of the planet, part of Mother Earth, to just be in touch with the seasons and the weather. To get out in the rain, and I was in the greenhouse and I could hear the raindrops on the greenhouse roof. It's wonderful. So don't moan about the weather. Celebrate the weather. It's part of life, right? We need it all. And the more rainy and drizzly it is here, quite frankly, the better, because we're pretty dry most of the time. But anyway, that's what I want to talk to you about in terms of connectedness today. And I hope you've all got something that you will take away and just say, I'm going to try. Understand that research is behind this. It is not me just saying, oh, this is what worked for me. This is all stuff that works with the broader MS and actually the female MS communities. So it will work. You don't have to do all of it. If you do, it'd be wonderful. If you want to post in the group from time to time and say, hey, everyone, guess what I can do now? I learned to make Julia Child's omelet.